X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to Battle of the Atom! This is the premier X-Men podcast, where I, Zack Jenkins, and my host, Adam Reck, go through three different X-Men stories, and then we put them to the test. We put them to the test to figure out who's the best, who's the worst, try and rank all the X-Men stories ever. Adam, how are you doing this day?
I am great, and I am very excited to jump into the alternate dimension that we are journeying to today. And it really is one of my favorites, so yeah. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, we today are going to talk about the one, the only Mojo, his gelatinousness, his spinelessness one. I can't think of a lot of phrases that go with Mojo. He's a very angry man.
He's the guy that you thought was going to show up in Legion and didn't.
Oh man, yeah, okay. I got really excited about that. That didn't go through.
You had me convinced. I was like, it's gonna be Mojo.
Look, based on the first couple of episodes, in my defense, there is a lot of evidence pointing to it, including using the name Yellow Eyes, which is a name that Mojo used in Cy Spurrier's X-Force run. I assume that Noah Hawley from Legion did not read that kind of obscure, kind of weird run of X-Men.
Which is an awesome run. I love that run. And he, in your defense, the character does also kind of look like Mojo.
He's a jaundiced, blobby man, but that wasn't him. But we're actually not talking about anything but Mojo today, I guess.
That's right. We're gonna focus.
The reason for that is because of a story picked by Patreon backer Nur Ravel, and I hope I pronounced that right, Nur. If not, yell at me, and it's fine. I can correct it in a different episode, I guess. But he requested a Mojo story, a odd Mojo story, and we decided to theme the episode around it.
This one's weird.
Yeah. So This is Astonishing Tales Mojoverse, which some people might not be familiar with, but it has a very interesting pedigree. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, who also does some art on all of the 616 stuff, not the Mojoverse stuff, with pencils by Nick Patara. Adam, what do you know about Jonathan Hickman? What do you know about Jonathan Hickman?
This is such a weird thing to look at because, I think many of us know Hickman because of his epic run at Marvel that I know I think I've read all of, with the exception of the unfinished Secret Warriors stuff. So the entire Fantastic Four and Future Foundation, and then jumping into Avengers, New Avengers, Infinity, and then of course Secret Wars. So that's where I'm coming from. So reading this, which is as when we get into it, you'll see, is very weird. It's a bit of a departure from what we're used to.
This is one of Hickman's first works at Marvel. He was doing Secret Warriors that started with Brian Michael Bendis, and he did this in an anthology book around the same time. And just to point out, because I know someone's going to be sitting at their computer right now saying, well, actually, yes, it was S.H.I.E.L.D. that's not finished. Secret Warriors did finish. You're wrong. Look,
sorry.
If I didn't do it, someone else would have. And now they feel vindicated. Sitting there like, oh, look, I know Jonathan Hickman stuff better than Adam.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just, I were calling back to the Inferno episode, and I realized that I referred to Ileana as the Dark Child. Instead of the Dark Child, I referred to her as the Goblin Queen. So, yeah, I make mistakes.
Yeah, I missed that one in editing. That's my bad. But yeah, so this has a weird pedigree with Jonathan Hickman and just his future, because this is a story he did with Nick Patara, who he is still doing the Manhattan projects for Image with. So this started that. This also is him writing Bobby and Sam, Sunspot, and Cannonball, who he would later bring into his Avengers run and make them full-fledged Avengers.
Yeah, and it's very interesting comparing. It's great to know that this is like early Hickman, because I want to get into that a little bit in terms of his approach here. But reading this Bobby and Sam versus where we get Bobby and Sam in Avengers is so radically different. There's clearly a difference in perspective and age in approaching the characters. As a writer,
Hickman grows up pretty quick after this, because this is a bit of a juvenile story. End of the day, it really is. This is for those of you who haven't read this, and go on Marvel Unlimited and find this, because it's a lot of fun to read. But this is Cannonball and Sunspot get brought into the Mojoverse, and they make a deal with Mojo that instead of doing his normal Mojo-y torture stuff, they're just going to be movie producers for him, and they start just doing riffs on a bunch of Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, and to make that deal, they actually have to go. They have to write a contract. There's riffs on the big writer's strike from around the time that this was written. There's all of these plays on television game shows like Family Feud and board games like Battleship. And by the time we get to the later parts of this, Nick's art is really fantastic. It's almost like looking at Where's Waldo pages. Mojo himself is very unique in the way he's depicted here. He looks kind of like he's pieced together by all of these, like a patchwork quilt of Jello blob grossness.
A lot of little tumors. A lot of little Mojo tumors on him.
Yeah.
But no, I really do enjoy this. I really did enjoy this story when I read it. I don't think it's perfect. In fact, I think there's one section where I struggle with my reaction to it. I want to say it is the 4th issue in this.
Yeah, I think
it's a
you're
Wedding
right.
Crashers riff. It's a Wedding Crashers riff all about trying to get Mojo laid, which is uncomfortable on several levels.
I'm glad you brought this up, because there's just an entire page where Mojo is basically like requesting to, get hooked up with somebody for that sole purpose. And then I guess it comes down to Sam pays off Elektra to have sex with Mojo, but then she thinks that she's also required to assassinate him. It's a weird, and we talked, I think we mentioned briefly that there's like a juvenile quality to this story. In its good way, it's fun and it's kind of light, and it has a really good sense of humor that pays off. Especially there's a whole riff at the end of this series with joking about Magnum PI and how Tom Selleck was supposed to be Indiana Jones. That really pays off and is very funny and true to character. But this is also of a sort of Judd Apatow era comedy viewpoint, and that particular issue, just skip it. It's got a weird vibe to it that's very gross, and doesn't age well.
Doesn't. However, I was reading that and I was like, I got to that issue and I was a little uncomfortable with it. Now there's some funny stuff in it. There's one panel where Mojo just says, "I want to go," and I cracked up laughing when I saw that. But that panel gets laughs, but there's a lot of stuff that follow it that's, again, exactly what you're saying, very Judd Apatow, like uncomfortable. And I didn't like the issue. I thought that was kind of out of place. But you do get to the end of that issue, and Hickman makes a point to have Sam and Bobby sit down and talk to each other and say, "Are we being kind of immature? Is this right? Are we doing the right thing here? Because it seems like we're not growing up and we're not being like the people we should be."
Yeah, there's definitely character depth here. I just think, just a quick side note, I think it's interesting that there's a little bit, I've never seen any Hickman art before. I've seen some of his covers before, but he's kind of got a Sienkiewicz quality to what he's doing. But the only reason I bring that up is because there's sort of an overarching bookend of this of vacation equals booze and girls. And, there's definitely kind of a frat boy sensibility that he's bringing to the characters, which, given what their age is supposed to be at this part in the timeline, I don't know that it's completely misguided.
Well, I mean, and given that Roberto's Roberto. Like, this is a weird, fun artifact.
Mhm.
It's not the most important thing in the world. It's not incredibly relevant. Like, you could go through all of your X-Men stuff, and this is just a weird little set of backups. But I think there's a lot to enjoy in it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it earlier, but the Magnum PI payoff at the end, I dropped my iPad and started clapping when I saw that that's how they were going to resolve it, because it's
great.
fabulous. It was great that they handled it that way. And the actual resolution to the story, the way that, Bobby and Sam win, it's a very Hickman thing. And it's actually something he goes back to in his Avengers run, which I thought was pretty clever. Like, he knew that was such a good idea.
It factors into Sunspot's wealth, helps him essentially be able to buy AIM later. There is some continuity here. And I gotta say, I know this is also, just kind of like a silly side story, but at the same time, when I heard that this existed, I was like, I gotta find this. Just knowing that Hickman did a Mojoworld thing with Sam and Bobby, as a New Mutants fan, I was like, I gotta check this out.
If you're the type of
really
X-Men fan who's listening to this X-Men podcast about weird X-Men things, you're probably the target market for this book. You're looking for this right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're going to want to dig through this at the very least to just look through each panel and see, like, what are the weird character cameos that he's got, that Batara has going back in the background of these panels. Yeah, it's great. It's fun.
It's a blast. Now, where would you rank this on our big old list, Adam? What's your gut feel? Because we have one other Mojo story on the list right now. We're going to get a couple more. But right now we have Mojo Mayhem from Excalibur. That's at number 19. I would say this is worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, this is silly, and it's fun, and it has a lot of Easter eggs similar to the Dupe story, but I do think it belongs lower on the totem pole. So I'm looking definitely below Exterminators.
Adam, you know my feelings on Exterminators.
I know you want Exterminators much higher than where it is.
Yeah, I think Exterminators is better. I think Inferno, X-Men, and X-Factor is better.
I think, we've been using Exiles as kind of like a bottom.
It's the turning point of this list.
Yeah, so I would put it below Wolverine Snicked.
I would agree. I actually think I'd put it below that Claremont Dracula issue, above Exiles. Okay. Awesome.
I'm in agreement.
Our new number 26 on this list is Astonishing Tales Mojoworld. And go pick it up. It's worth reading. It's got some problematic elements, but it's
definitely
like...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's quick. It's quick. Each section is only a couple pages long, so you can read through it real fast.
Stuff. Do you know what else is quick? Do you know what else is kind of fun? Do you know what else has Mojo in it?
Jim Lee era X-Men
Jim Lee
Volume
era
2.
X-Men Volume 2, number 10 and 11, where Mojo decides to do the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
This is the end of Jim Lee's run on X-Men. His very short run on X-Men Volume 2. It's weird.
Well, and that's super, super apparent as you
This
read
is a nothing story, right? Like, Longshot comes back. Like, this is the X-Men all get captured, get forced to play out the Wizard of Oz, and then at the end they all break free. There's a fight, and Longshot finally kills Mojo and replaces him with Mojo 2 the sequel. Mojo 2 the sequel.
Which is great. I do love... I have a special place in my heart for this. Reading this, and I'm not going to rank this very high, because this is clearly of an era when Image is in the background. It's very clear, even from some of the character designs that are in these issues, that Jim Lee is already working on Wildcats. That has his priority. He's, especially on the last issue, he is, penciling, he's letting Scott Williams, really pull the weight of the issue, and he's out of there, man. He's out. Like, there are certain panels that actually have, like, Mojo reaction panels that I think are repeated from page to page. So that influences how we read this story, I think, a great deal. I do think it's worth noting, this is actually the Longshot and Dazzler post Siege Perilous story. That's how long it's been since we got Dazzler,
like a one shot.
Post Siege Perilous. Right. They're the whole deal where she's been stalked by the fan, but this is the payoff of that story. So that's kind of crazy wise. I don't know that it's a
No.
great payoff.
This is
It's
such
slight.
a nothing thing. Like, Mojo lives and dies on if a artist and a writer can say something with him. This right
Mhm.
here is the biggest use of Mojo's here, so we got to use a lot of movie and TV words. It's
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, okay, Wizard of Oz riff. I get it. I don't care about it.
And I also wonder if the editors realized that, if they like looked at this and thought maybe this was going, because I'm curious how Jim's exit may have affected the length of this story and or
Yeah.
what they did with it. Was there more planned? Because it is interesting to me that then you also almost simultaneously get the Shattershot annual story, which is a much longer and in-depth Mojoverse tale that it holds up a lot better. We're not going to talk about that today. We can get into that on another episode, but that has much more substance than these two issues, which are, like you said,
I totally
they're
agree.
fluff.
I mean, and it's not helped that both of these issues have a backup story and like some extra stuff. They have a story called Last Stand featuring Maverick. Maverick's the most image ass looking dude in X-Men history. Like, it's Scott Lobdell writing it. It's Mark Texeira doing the art, and the art's very good on this. I like the art. But it's...
I like the art too, but isn't the villain that he
Yeah,
fights here
it's
never seen
super
again?
boring.
Has no basis in anything. It's just Maverick kind of shooting things.
Maverick doing some guns.
So that affects your page count even on the actual Jim Lee side of things.
The guy he fights, this was not his first appearance. The guy Maverick fights. No, his name is Warhawk.
Oh, no?
And he first appeared in Marvel Premiere 23 featuring Iron Fist. I did not know that. And he was in Luke Cage #1 recently. Okay, so this is... He was in the entire first arc of Luke Cage.
Right. So there's a little bit of continuity.
Like
here.
the most recent one.
Good for that guy.
Yeah. So he's very forgettable, if you couldn't tell. But yeah, this is a nothing story. I don't have much to say about it because there's not much to say. I think this being the climax of Mojo stuff, at least for the time, doesn't work for it. I don't think there's anything interesting happening with the X-Men here. This is just a whole lot of blah.
Yeah, I one shout out to, I love Dazzler's design. I do like her design in this. I like the Shatterstar in joke at the end of issue 11. But yeah, not a lot of substance here. So I think we should probably just move to ranking it, as there's not really a lot to discuss in depth here.
I mean, I do want to point out the only other thing I like in this is that on the cover of issue 11 it says plus Maverick and the Xavier Files, which I didn't actually know when I was sitting at my breakfast table this one day and said I should start a website.
Oh, don't feel too bad, buddy. It's okay. I don't think that was a regular feature for very long.
I know.
Everybody in this era of 90s is like keeping secret dossiers on each other. Everybody has.
There's a lot of dossiers.
Everybody has a strike file somewhere in a file cabinet. It's great. All right. So where do we want to put this?
Okay. So this is worse than Astonishing Tales Mojo World.
Oh, yeah.
Because I actually want to talk about Astonishing Tales
Absolutely.
Mojo World.
I'll even give Fatal Attractions some points here. I mean, I think that has more going on.
Good. I thought we were going to have to find that.
I don't know.
I thought I was going to have to find that.
No, this can go pretty far down.
Honestly, here's where I'm looking. I'm looking at the 30 to 32 range, the X-Men #1 Deadly Genesis No More Humans. I think this is coherent, so it's better than New Mutants Summer Special, no matter how many people apparently love that thing.
I love the New Mutants Summer Special. I want to go back and look at it. I don't necessarily want to read it. That is my distinction on that one. And that's no condescension to Miss Nascenti, because I think she's amazing. But
I think Anna
Yeah.
Seiichi's great.
I don't know. I'm comfortable putting it below No More Humans, which...
I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair. This is going to be our new number 33, X-Men Volume 2, 10 and 11. So actually, since we're speaking about Nascenti and Mojo, fun little anecdote here. Just a couple of weeks ago, I think beginning of October, me and friend of the show, Luke Hare, went to Columbus Comics Crossroads, Columbus. It was a show in Columbus, Ohio. And one of the guests there was Ann Nascenti.
Nice.
And yeah, she talked about a lot of fun stuff, including how she thinks that Mojo is essentially Donald Trump, which, not to get crazy political on here, but that made me laugh a lot. That got some good giggles from the audience. Turns out the liberal indie comics crowd ate that up.
And I think that, I don't know if that's a perfect metaphor. I actually enjoy Mojo's antics as opposed to the real human being. If that's how you want to describe that person. But I think it's an interesting parallel for sure.
Yeah. Do you know who else was at that show? Chip Zdarsky was.
Interesting that you mentioned that, because we do have one more story as part of our show today.
Now, this is a weird one for our show. I want to say Adam brought this up, and I said, okay.
Yeah.
Because this is Howard the Duck, Volume 6, numbers 9 through 11, written by Chip Zdarsky, the National Treasure, with pencils by Joe Quinones. This is so, look, Howard the Duck's not an X-Men character. I can accept that. But this is such a Mojo story, it's not even funny.
And let's not discredit this. This has some major X qualities to it, including an entire X-Men Sentinels fight scene in episode issue 8. So there is some big time X-Men stuff here. The other one is the Super Babies photo studio, which has the baby versions,
which is an X-Men strip,
which has the baby Wolverine and baby Charles Xavier photos, like real babies as these characters. It's delightful.
It has the Iron Punisher, who is a Sentinel mixed with the Punisher, who only wants to feel love.
Yeah, and gets to bring a cat home at the end of the day. That's his resolution.
A cat who may or may not be from the Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely series We 3.
Yeah, it's very similar, right? It's got that rubber plating on it.
That's supposed to be a cat from We 3. Yeah, it's great.
Maybe we should talk about why this is a Mojo story, because this is very surprising, I think, maybe to Howard the Duck fans who might have been reading this story.
Yeah. I mean, you suggested it. What do you think about it?
I thought about it immediately because essentially what happens in issue 8 is that Howard the Duck reconnects with Bev, who was the series sidekick, who then was played by Leah Thompson in the very terrible George Lucas produced Howard the Duck film. But at the end of 8, Leah Thompson, the person who exists in I guess Marvel 616, comes.
She's Flash Thompson's aunt, I think.
Oh, is that established? I didn't catch that. Is that in there?
Yeah. They mentioned that somewhere. She's related to Flash. Yeah, because Aunt May knows her. Yeah,
and Aunt May is Howard the Duck's detective agency receptionist. If I got that right. Okay.
Yep.
So Leah Thompson comes to Howard the Duck detective agency to figure out the mystery behind what seems to be these missing chunks of time, where it turns out that Mojo has been using Leah Thompson and someone in a costume that looks identical to the Howard the Duck guy from the movie, and filming Howard the Duck scenes for the Mojoverse. And then there's another level behind that, because there are alien versions of Marvel Studios that are hiring Mojo to create these scenes and to kind of ruin Howard's life. It's so good.
They're writing it. Like the writers of Howard the Duck, The Life, are a guy named Chip and a guy named Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And they have co-workers like Ryan, who is Ryan North, and he's charming.
Erica.
And Erica Henderson, and their new coworker, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh my God, that scene is so great. I love it. I love it. And then Axel Alonso appears at the end as sort of like the benevolent overlord to fix everything in the last bit. Oh, it's great.
This works on several levels. One, it wraps up every stray plot line from the Chip Zdarsky Howard the Duck series.
Mm-hmm.
So it works really well as a closing to this. It also does what a good Mojo story should do and pulls back a layer to tell something about stories. It's very metatextual. It does a lot of stuff like that. And this is unlike X-Men Volume 2, 10, and 11, which was just, hey, TV exists. This is telling stories about like these characters and how they have to continue on forever and ever in the endless cycle of monthly comic books, how they have to find a way to continue, how they can never really have resolution, never really have peace in their stories. They just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And there's going to be lulls, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad.
The thing I absolutely love about Chip's writing, and I think it's similar to what we see with what Ryan and Erica do with Squirrel Girl, and what we see even in Moon Girl, which is another favorite of mine. All three of those series have had sort of a cartoony quality to them, but they play with the Marvel Universe in fun ways that you don't necessarily see everywhere else. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the fact that at some point in issue number 9, a male version of Spiral shows up for a quick cameo.
Helix? You're talking about Helix?
Helix. Oh my goodness. That's the kind of inventiveness that I absolutely love when writers and artists pull off, and it works so well.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
Helix is great. It's literally just Spiral, but as a hunky dude.
Yeah, hunky dude.
It's great. I love it so much.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. And the resolution of this story just piles things on top of things, and the resolution where we get these aliens as the Marvel writers and artists talking to each other, it's so funny. It's just a really, and just, aside from all the in-jokes, aside from all of the layering, it's just a really good story. It works very well. You get real character depth with everybody, and there are some actual X-Men elements. I really love, I mentioned the Sentinel X-Men fight scene in issue number 8, but there's like a one panel where Wolverine just takes down a Sentinel. I think it might be the Iron Sentinel that then plagues them for the rest of the storyline. But he has one line of dialogue, and it is just "bub." That's it. He flies through him and says "bub," and that's it. It's great.
All right, look, Wolverine only ever needs to say "snicked" and "bub."
Yeah,
so that works out for me.
Now, right? Is that he? It's not a sound effect that he just says it. Isn't that a?
I mean, look. Jubilee said that, and Jubilee was probably joking, but yes. I want to believe it. I want to believe.
Nice little touch. So, I think we're in agreement that this is outstanding.
It's a very, very good story. It has one fatal flaw for our purposes,
which is
that it's not like there's not an X in the title, and that hurts it.
Yeah, and I threw this out there on Twitter the other night because I was a little bit confused in thinking about how to even approach ranking this, because I wanted to talk about it in the context of this because it's a very good Mojo story. And if you like Mojo stories, you gotta check this out. Even on its own, if you don't like Mojo, it's awesome, but it has that it's got the special Mojo stuff that you want. But I don't know where to put it on the list.
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking. We've used Exiles 1 and 2 as our dividing line for a very long time. I think it's better than that, because I think this is a good story.
Oh my God. And this is the other issue I'm having with this. I think that Zdarsky is really good. And reading this story as a whole, I'm looking at this and I'm going, this is better than a lot of stuff that is on our list. And, I don't know. Like, should we put this on the list? Should we rank this, or should we?
Well, I think we have to rank it because, dang it,
it's on the show. We're talking about it.
And our list has to be divisible by 3. It's going to really bug me when it's
That's
not.
a good point. Yeah. That's a
like,
good point.
I'm gonna be honest. The list has to be divisible by 3.
Okay. So we've got to then give it a deficit for not being an X-Men story, and that'll be what pushes it down.
I think it is. I think that's what you have to do. Like, there's X-Men stories on this list that I like better than this. I think, like...
Oh, yeah.
Our top 10 I like better than this, for example. From, like, the dupe issue down is where I'd get a little fuzzy. I think where I would put it is... Ultimate X-Men is probably a better X-Men story than Howard the Duck, even if the Howard the Duck one is very good.
Okay. I like your thinking there. That's good. So 21? Yeah.
Is it better than Inferno? People are already mad at us about Inferno, but it is our list.
You know what? I think we need to stick to our guns, that we are not like the biggest Inferno fans, and I think we should put it at 21.
Good. Howard the Duck.
Inferno be damned.
That's a good pun. I
didn't even think about that.
Oh, man. So Howard the Duck is now on the list at number 21. And you know what? Our list has 39 on it now. And do you know what's cool about that number?
Please, share.
It's divisible by 3, which means we're done with the episode. we're at the end point where we wrap up.
You could say the catchphrase.
Well, look, we still have to promote all the things that we do, like patreon.com, which has supported this episode and this whole podcast. If you go on patreon.com/XavierFiles, like our good friend Nair did, you can donate a couple of bucks. That helps pay for Zencaster, helps, keep hosting going, all that fun stuff. And you can get your own selection put onto this list, and we will probably just craft an entire episode around it, a bespoke experience, because it's easier that way. We like it better. It's more fun to talk about things with a theme. We're finding that out 14 episodes in.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, so do that. If you can't support financially, monetarily, support us morally. You can, just say hi to us on Twitter, like me, at XavierFiles, or you can go to iTunes or Google Play, leave a review. It really helps keep things moving here, helps more people find the show. Beyond that, you can go to XavierFiles.com, where every week I have a new X-Men article. This week we have just finished talking about Richter, who is a very interesting guy.
Star of the Gifted. Just kidding.
Okay, I was about to that's a different dude, right?
I love that they're doing that.
Even if they act a lot the same. Oh, but Mr. Rec, where can people find you on the internet?
All right, guys, you can always follow me at Arthur Stacy, and you can check out drawings and illustrations at adamrec.tumblr.com.
Fantastic. Well, that's been a very exciting, very Mojo-heavy episode, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good time.
Loved it. Great.
I don't think we're getting canceled.
No.
I think we're going to survive.
Let's get those ratings up, guys.
Let's get those ratings up. Hey, I'm Zach. That was Adam. This has been Battle of the Atom. I hope you survived the experience.
Get it!
Wow, you just dropped an F-bomb.
Yeah, I'm going to bleep
Are we bleeping
it. I'm
that?
going to bleep it, but I figured that it's better to bleep it in the middle of the thing than...
Yeah.
Anyway, this is podcast talk. That's not actually making the podcast. This is background. But, so, I mean, that...